Seems like the quarantine has done not to my mental health, but only deter it further. Go figure. Part of the reason I take breaks from these videos when I do is because I don't have anything to talk about or say to you guys. That, or what I do have to say, is not something that you care to hear. I mean, there is a whole other element of work effort and presentation which stops me from truly fully committing to this channel, among other things I try to do, but that's kind of strange because when I do commit, I work like a fucking machine. I work unconsciously, almost recklessly, in consideration for my own health in many ways. Maybe it says something about the way that I think or my own psychology that I spend the long nights doing work that I hate only to spend the long days doing work that I love. Parentheses around work there because while I consider it work, most people, and myself in some cases, would consider it pleasurable, distracting, or otherwise recreational activity. I don't want to admit this to myself though because my rationalization is that I've turned what's pleasurable into work even though I still don't do what I tell myself is pleasurable at times. But then I'm already contradicting myself because I recognize that what I'm doing is making bad decisions and rationalizing them as either fine or negligible for me and for others involved, despite me recognizing that sometimes, maybe even more times than I'd rather admit, they're not. And I don't exculpate this to anyone, including the camera, because no one wants to listen to you bitch and moan. Funnily enough, I've been told this, but when people do, they're honestly probably referring to me doing it over other forms of social media, which I suppose makes sense, but no one listens to me in regular conversations regardless. Maybe I should reword that. I mean, before quarantine, people who genuinely cared about me enough listened to me, but that might have just been because I was right in front of them and I thrive in that setting as opposed to through a tin can or text. Go figure. However, now conversation with people I would have considered friends or acquaintances before feels like I'm interacting with a complete stranger and I look like a literal bum. Regardless of how I perceive interaction through DMs, it's where I get a response anyways, and when I do, it's never as friendly or as natural or as effective to either as it used to be in person. The once or twice in a season it truly does get personal in that necessary way that I can't quite reach with either my parents or my therapist or random people I meet on Discord. I don't listen to the advice given anyways. Let's talk about that for a second since they're definitely probably watching this right now. If you discuss with me my channel or anything that I talk about in my videos in person, I'm not going to engage you. Now let's discuss each. I can talk to my parents quite naturally. I think we've reached a stage in our relationship and both of our lives where they just wish that I get and give the most that I can out of life before it's over, and I'm attempting to do that in the best way that I can, or at least know how. I could talk to my therapist, but I'm not going to spend much time on this because I think patient-doctor confidentiality works both ways. All I will say is that when I think about this stuff I should probably talk to my therapist about, it's never during the actual meetings. There might be a subconscious reason for this, but regardless, the conversations we do have are fine, truthful, and productive, so maybe therapy conversations are supposed to be more grounded than I realized. I can talk to people on Discord quite well, and there I get to express my personality, which I rarely can do elsewhere nowadays. The magic of Discord is infinite, but it doesn't change the fact that I only found out about it during this quarantine. Thus, the people I know there are barely friends with me, and conversation feels relatively impersonal. The dynamic is akin to that of what I had with those who weren't close to me in college, and that's fine enough, I guess. But the reason I brought up all that bullshit is because I said that no one is listening to me, yet I just listed a lot of people willing to listen to me. And rather than choose any of them, I decide to either bottle it up or throw it out into the wild blue yonder in a feeble attempt to spark some form of unique interaction, either through a long-winded post on social media, a spontaneous message to an old friend, or some form of entertainment whose recompense is usually statistics-based, or in other words, watching numbers go up. The former results in virtually nil. Although I hear the more you engage in that, the more you get out of it, but I've yet to see results in that respect, so I prefer the latter, watching numbers go up. Funnily enough, the society favors that. In fact, it's built around it. Go figure. For example, why don't I spend all day investing? It's the same thing I'm doing now, watching numbers go up, but instead I'd rather watch an elo go up, or maybe the number of beats in my folders, or videos on my channel, all with gradually increasing numbers of their own. At least my drive in these desires is less artificial than what it used to be. I no longer desire that same fame or acclaim that I once did. It's weird because I realize that the destinations of my life in many respects are not futile like I once thought, but rather just underwhelming to truly reach. Remember how I said in a previous video that if I achieved fame, I'd only become that which I hate? Well, nowadays I realize I still desire that fame, but it's complicated. I've done a hell of a lot of thinking lately, and I realize that it's less that I don't know what I want to do, and more that I don't want to do anything. And that sounds like something you'd roll your eyes at, so I guess I'll back up and explain what I mean a little better. I don't enjoy anything, so even when I'm doing what I enjoy, I no longer enjoy it after a minute. Instead of admitting this to myself, I've been trying to find something that I enjoy that I'm naturally good at, so I have to put little work into it. Or maybe rather something so simple for me that I find it facile to improve at. Hell, if anything were just a little bit more fun to actually do, I might actually enjoy doing it. But for some reason, I can't find myself finding anything fun. Music feels more like I'm trying to fit a lot of wild moving parts together at once. Competitive games like chess or poker require fast consideration for a lot of different variables. Exercise literally just feels like I'm hurting myself for fun, and I honestly can't tell what the appeal of it is. All of it in the end is just stressful bullshit for what seems like literally nothing to me. The view from the peak of the mountain has never truly been that glorious anyways. I hear from one of my professors that I'm going to be satisfied with all the hours of self-inflicted punishment and sacrifice I've endured throughout the years when I'm accepting my Grammy Award, yet every year passes, I respect those awards less and less. Awards are just subjective signs of praise and recognition from arbitrary coalitions of people in the field who deem themselves worthy of distributing that award to whoever they vote deserves it. Awards don't mean shit about the value of the piece of the work that you created, the message it has to say, or what it accomplishes developmentally in its field. Awards don't mean shit. And thus, when I get a Grammy, it's gonna seem pretty underwhelming when it doesn't cook me better food, it doesn't get me a comfier house, it doesn't make me happier. It's just the fact that I was awarded a Grammy. You may be arguing this and that, and oh, how I'm so wrong, and this is what the Grammy gives you, or whatever, but regardless of what a Grammy actually does grant you in real life, it doesn't change the fact that I'm not going to enjoy anything I'm doing after I've won it. If you're gonna make music, at the end of the day, you still have to make music. I guess you can become like Snoop Dogg or T-Pain or Shaq, where after you win at life, you sort of just spend your time doing whatever random shit you come across in your free time, but I wouldn't enjoy any of that shit either. Just like I don't enjoy exercising, or just like I don't enjoy chess, just like I don't enjoy music. You see where I'm going with this. If you don't perceive yourself enjoying anything, it all just becomes the same. It's sort of like horseshoe theory or something, because basically I enjoy everything just about as much as I enjoy everything else, which is little, so I'm willing to do harder and worse shit because it's all relatively the same for me now. This is sort of what Buddhism says, except they tell you that you can reject suffrage altogether by releasing all desire. Essentially, you stop trying to live and just, well, live. My approach is sort of saying, okay, it's all shit, but that makes it all okay relative to each other. So while I still feel the pain or stress from doing certain actions, I enjoy them just as much as the actions that I might consider pleasurable. Now it's funny that I say that because my brain sometimes crosses the wires. Sometimes I'll engage in the pleasurable for the exact same reason, because it's all suffrage, so I might as well engage with that which is most sensually stimulating. And even that's interesting because I find myself more willing to submit to more painful or harsher forms of labor as a result. It's kind of like that doctor from that one episode of Black Mirror. That's actually a scarily similar premise, but it kind of makes sense given its black fucking mirror. So, that's where I'm at. Now willingly engaging in that which I don't enjoy because I don't enjoy anything. And I can't tell if this is good for me or not. The obvious conclusion for me to draw here would be I don't care, mainly because that would remain consistent with my character and the actions I've made so far. I can justify what I do to an extent because I try to balance that which is productive with that which is not, just like anyone else. But on a deeper level, I have to understand why I don't enjoy anything, or at least how I can, otherwise I'm just driving myself down a path of negativity. Now, I don't mind riding down this path. It's just that I hear people warning me not to, even if it doesn't stop them from resting their hand on the wheel in the process. Life moves incredibly too fast for me, and before I'm ever ready, it's forcing upon me some stressful or hard situation with barely any time to process or simply reflect on it. Times of great pride or satisfaction or pure unadulterated joy are so few and far between nowadays, and even when they do come, they pass so quickly it make you question the worth of it all or that which led to it in the first place. Okay, maybe I might be speaking from a point of personal experience. I mean, I'm sure you feel all the pride and satisfaction that you can hope for doing whatever. I'm just saying that I don't. And it's clearly hard to find motivation or reason to do something, anything, when you don't enjoy doing it and it doesn't give you anything to enjoy or want in return. I guess this thus brings us to the crux of this video, and that isn't always with every video that I make. Why am I making it? Because I've reached a point in my life where I've stopped caring about the rewards of my actions and maybe even the consequences of them as well. I no longer do things because of certain reasons. I do them because they're more bearable than others, or because there simply isn't anything else to do. I mean, I still have the motivation to do certain things because of certain reasons. It's just that reasons have shifted and changed ever so slightly. I'm no longer making music to escape the monotony of mediocrity, and more just to get better at music. So when I'm old and shit, I'll know music better than anyone else. I mean, at the end of the day, monotony of mediocrity would just shift to that of a studio. So my office would just be the same as one at any other boring mid-wage job, just louder and with cooler lighting. Being able to simplify what I'm trying to do like that helps with my motivation to accomplish certain tasks. Sure, obviously, but in some weird sense, it's like I'm okay if I don't reach what I always deemed as my milestones of achievement in various skill sets or whatever anymore. So like, for example, I'm no longer playing chess with the motivation to get to 1500 ELO in the back of my mind. More simply to just improve. And this could be applied to other disciplines as well. Now, that's not to say that I've reached a stage of rationalized passive acceptance for my situation in which I had little to no control over how good I was in these skills and wasn't special enough to lug my way out of my situation with a spontaneous transition to stardom, but more that I've just realized the futility and meaninglessness of it all before I've actually achieved any level of real success in those fields to begin with. It feels sort of like a cheap cop-out way to be in denial of the fact that I actually am accepting my place in mediocrity, but I would honestly say that I'm too young with too much potential to declare that with any sense of certainty just yet. I turned 21 in July. That's a huge step up for anyone, but for me, I just saw it as the end of a transition that I finally made into adulthood, at least the beginning of it. To have a midlife crisis in this moment would be oddly ironic and yet prophetic, considering how far I feel like I push my body at times. Nevertheless, I feel like the best thing that I can do in this current moment is to meditate and rationalize my situation, even though I probably didn't choose the best time to do it. It's also kind of self-fulfillment that I call the process of making a video like this a meditation, but regardless, things might drastically change in the next couple of months. Or they might not. And I think I finally discovered that my life, like everyone else's, is affected by each other, and thus we all affect our own lives in massive and minor ways. Now, the most I can do is find ways to spend my time which hopefully influence my life as much as possible before I'm somehow quite literally unable to and I'm stuck with whatever I got left. And if my time on this earth is tragically cut short, then at least I can produce as much of what is an expression of me and my personality as I can. That way, even if no one watches this in my lifetime, maybe someone will, and they'll find what I have to say and show as worth consuming and thinking about. Sort of how I like to enjoy doing the same with literally everything else. As for the mediocrity, well, I'm not mediocre. I used to say that I lived a full life before I reached adulthood, and while I don't believe that to actually be true or whatever, I still think that I'm more interesting than most people you'd often meet on the street. And I have a hell of a lot more experience, knowledge, and skills that you probably don't. That actually touches on another point about how all of my actions are drawn by spite and anger, but it's simply just that, and I think I've gone on for long enough about this topic. No one wants to hear you bitch and moan, and I can clearly take a hint. I mean, the second reason I make these videos remains as an act of catharsis, so I think in the end, this is sort of just a thinly veiled way of expressing negative energy, and thus I continue to do it for the obvious reason of that. I think that I've accomplished the introspection that I've set out to achieve with this video. As a reflection of the themes presented, it's not one for clicks or anything, it's just sort of thinking and talking aloud about my current state of being. It thus feels kind of out of place to be asking for likes and whatnot, but yeah, do all that YouTube crap if you haven't already and feel entertained by this. I think that's all I have to say for this video. Anything else I think of that I want to mention, I'll just write up in the script for the next one. Until then, I hope that you all maintain your perfectly fine mental states and always remember to think philosophically.